Hi, I'm Lydia with Revelation Real Estate, and today in Solving Life's Next Chapter, we have Francisco with Keystone Law Firm. Thanks for coming.
My absolute pleasure.
So we have worked a lot together, and I value your opinion, and I refer all of my probates and guardianships to you and estate planning. So we're going to talk about probate, guardianships, and estate planning. So let's start with probate first. So tell us, I know.
Nobody wants to hear about probate.
Nobody wants to, but unfortunately we have to talk about it. So give us kind of the easiest way of what is probate.
Probate. So the first thing everybody should probably knows about probate is that it's something that happens after people die. Right. So as an estate planning attorney, we get calls, mom or dad passed away, and what do we do?
Right.
Sometimes, not all the time, sometimes things will get stuck, and it's only when something is stuck in mom or dad's name, there wasn't a beneficiary, there wasn't a joint co-owner, there wasn't some type of right of survivorship.
Right.
That then, if that happens, then that bank account or that piece of real estate will get frozen. Essentially, nobody can transfer out of the bank. Nobody can sell the house.
Right.
They go to sell the house. They get in a contract, and the title company says, "Oh, this was in mom or dad's name."
Yep.
And then they go.
I hear that a lot.
You hear that a lot, right? And what we see is a lot of folks are like, "Well, no, I've got a will." They'll turn that into the bank. They'll turn it into the title company, and immediately those institutions, they'll come back and they'll say, we need, because they're reading their policy book, we need a letter of testamentary appointed something from the court.
Yep.
That's probate.
Yep. So that kind of brings me to another question for you. So is it true that if someone has a will without a trust, that it still will go or could go into probate? And the reason why I ask that is a lot of my clients, when I get the call, they say, no, I've got everything under control, but then all they have is a will.
Yeah.
So how does that work?
It's, we hope you do too. A lot of clients that are kind of from Midwest or, from other states where things are simpler. There are some states where things are simpler, and a really basic, simple will is all you need.
Right. Okay.
And, you can take care of your family that way and keep things organized. In Arizona, it just isn't that way.
Okay.
If you have nothing, right? If you don't have a will, if you don't have a trust, then probate is going to be the system that's used to take care of your affairs, which may or may not be what you want. If all you have is a will, in Arizona, the only way to get that will to work after you die, to do what you want, is for your family to actually file it in probate and get it approved by the judge.
Okay.
Spend a bunch of money, spend a bunch of time with lawyers, which everybody wants to avoid us lawyers,
Absolutely.
right?
Too expensive.
I don't take offense to that. It's just, you want to avoid it. They have to go through court and have to get all that stuff approved and documented. And then it's like a 6 to 12 month process that they got to deal with.
Right.
But yeah, if all you've got is a will, that's kind of what your family's going to go through.
So the probate courts are the ones that actually, they take whatever documentation you have, and then they try to decipher on what the deceased wanted with that will, basically. Or if they don't have a will, they're kind of, you attorneys go in with the families and say, okay, this is what we think mom wanted, or this is what we think dad wanted.
No, not even.
Oh, you don't?
No, not even. So if there is a will, that should say what your wishes are. Okay. We run into a lot of problems with those simply because there's a lot of people try to do it themselves and don't quite get everything in there that needs to be in there.
Yeah.
And so if something's missing, it can actually put a bigger monkey wrench than people realize. But anyway, you got to file that. And what really is annoying about the probate system is when you file it, there's this whole group of people in your life, whether you want them to or not, who are entitled to a copy of it and to a copy of everything that you owned while you were alive.
Okay.
So they're entitled to all this private information that then gets put also on the court record, which is a public record.
Yep.
And what they get with that is this invitation from the court that says, would you like to contest this? And in Arizona, it's really super simple to contest it. You basically just lob a grenade, and now the whole thing's contested.
Right. Okay.
And so, but at least if you had a will, your wishes were known.
Okay.
Okay. If you don't have a will, your family is just gonna fall at the whim of the court.
Yeah.
There's default rules about what's going to happen and where your estate's going to go.
Okay.
Even if you have somebody come in, the most honest and highest integrity person who says, I swear this is what mom wanted, doesn't matter. It has to go according to the probate rules, right?
Yep.
And in a lot of circumstances, that is not what you would expect.
Right.
And especially in blended families,
right.
It is completely contrary to common sense in those cases. So
yeah, blended families are big out here because we do have a lot of winter visitors, and a lot of them do get remarried after their spouses have passed away, and a lot of them don't do prenups, which they really should, but they come from an era where they didn't have to,
right?
And they don't think about it usually. So I've had a few of those situations as well. So
we had one where the couple didn't get remarried because for a bunch of reasons they just wanted to join as a partnership but didn't get married. And when one of them passed away, the family members of that one kicked her out of the house, evicted her, basically made her life a nightmare.
Yeah. I've had that situation too, actually.
It was just hideous.
Yeah.
So, I mean, even if you're not going to get married, you got to put together
something,
a plan that says, hey, you can stay in the house, whatever.
So even non-married seniors can have a trust together so that they have, or some sort of written document?
Yeah, there's a written plan. They don't get a trust together, but they do plan together.
Okay.
And that way, if one goes before the other, you just don't know who's going to go first, kind of a thing. The survivor isn't left completely, out in the cold.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that also brings me, we've done a lot of guardianships together.
Yeah.
And guardianships are, you tell us what a guardianship is for, like, seniors specifically.
Yeah. So when we have folks who are aging, into that what our firm we call that legacy and care stage of life, right? That's when they're starting to need a little bit of help. Maybe one of the spouses, or if they're not married, maybe one of the kids is starting to help with just making sure doctor's appointments are arranged and the bills are getting paid. Things are just in order, right? There comes a time, or there can come a time, where it gets to the point where mom or dad can't make decisions anymore, and the doctor says, like, look, it's either due to a stroke or dementia or something, where we need somebody else to be making decisions.
Okay.
They're missing the bills. They're not really understanding the finances.
Right.
They're at risk of people taking advantage of them, unfortunately.
Yes.
And so we really got to get somebody else who's helping, and can protect them from being exploited. Basically, is what it is. So if mom or dad doesn't have everything perfectly in order at that point, then what can happen, and these are the things you're referring to, is the daughter will go over to the bank and say, hey, I need to make sure mom and dad's accounts are all under my name. I'm the POA, or I'm whatever.
Right.
And if the bank doesn't approve whatever legal documents you present, then they are allowed, and they're actually kind of required under Arizona law, to freeze the accounts.
Yeah.
And that's the scary moment, because then now all of a sudden the money's cut off.
Right.
And what they'll do is they'll freeze the accounts, and they'll say, you need to go get a court order.
Right.
And that court order is the guardianship process.
Right. Okay.
So in Arizona, that gets triggered in two circumstances.
Okay.
Number one, if you don't have any of this stuff in place at all.
Okay.
Right? You don't have power of attorneys. You don't have a trust. If you have a will, that doesn't help, because that only triggers when you die.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's good to know. Okay, I did not know that. Okay.
Only triggers when you die. And then also, even if you have everybody named as beneficiaries on all your accounts and stuff, that doesn't help either, because that only triggers when you die.
I did not realize that.
I know, right? It's like we think, no, I've got about beneficiaries on everything.
Right.
But the whole concept of beneficiary is I have to die first.
Right. Okay, that makes sense.
So if we're in that legacy care stage,
right.
I haven't died yet. I just need help.
Right.
I just need help.
Or I've got dementia and I can't make those decisions.
I've got dementia. I've got Alzheimer's. I can't make those decisions. I don't understand. I need my son, my daughter's, my spouse's help.
Right.
Then that stuff doesn't help. Beneficiaries doesn't help. A will doesn't help.
Right.
Even a trust won't help if everything's not funded into your trust, which is a whole other discussion. We'll get to that. Then, so if you don't have that stuff in place, then that's when the bank or the title company will say this thing is frozen. Nobody can cash it out. Nobody can liquidate it. Nobody can sell it. You got to go get a court order.
Right.
The other time it comes up is when you do have those documents in place, but they're old.
Oh.
This is the gray area of the law in Arizona.
Okay.
There's no law that says what is too old. So
interesting.
Unfortunately, I get everyone asks me, well, what's too old? And there's no law. Nobody tells us.
Okay.
So we have to go off our experience and what industry kind of practice tells us.
Right.
And after, going through about the last decade of helping clients with this, my real opinion is like a year is too old, and it's not that you have to update everything every year,
right?
But you got to have somebody who's standing behind your documents that's going to be able to come out and say, no, this is valid under Arizona law.
Right.
And so we recommend at least an annual checkup,
like everything in our life. I totally agree with
that. Just an annual checkup, right? Get an annual checkup.
And don't you think too that I know a few years ago, maybe it was a little bit longer, sometimes the rules change and people don't know it. So that's when going to your attorney and getting it just checked every year, kind of, okay, this has changed, but this is the same.
Totally.
And that kind of a thing.
Totally. And so what happens when they're old, even if you have a valid power of attorney, like even one, I drafted, right?
Right.
I know it's valid.
Right.
If you can take it and walk it into a bank and say, I'm power of attorney for mom or dad. The bank there's no law in Arizona that says they have to honor it. Okay. So you could walk in, it's perfectly valid, you give it to the bank, and the bank they have some legal obligation to kind of assess the situation. Or even they don't even assess, they just say, you know what, we don't want to honor it because you're not our customer, and we've never met you before, Lydia. You're coming in with power of attorney for mom or dad, and you're saying cash out her accounts. We feel a little uncertain about that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I don't blame them.
Right, I don't either.
But then it's like, well, how do we take care of mom or dad, right? Because what happens if they do that is they freeze the accounts.
Everything,
And then you're stuck. You have no choice but to go to court and get a guardianship.
Right.
And so here's what the guardianship is. And you know this, but just for your listeners, it's this gigantic. So probate after death is bad.
Right.
Guardianships are infinitely worse.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Are infinitely worse. So in our office, we call that the second probate that nobody knows about, that people don't know about.
Because it goes through the probate court.
It's the same court. It's the same division in Arizona that handles these. So you have to literally file a lawsuit against your mom, your dad, your husband, your spouse, your wife, whoever it is that has the diminished capacity.
Right.
You have to literally sue them.
Okay.
The court appoints an attorney for them.
Right.
Off of some random list.
Okay.
And then now you're going to court saying, Your Honor, Judge, please let me take control of their finances or their health or whatever it is.
Okay. Now the attorney for the court is only for the person who is in need of the guardianship, right? Okay.
Yep.
So
they only represent them.
Both parties need to have their own attorneys.
Yeah.
And that's why it's even worse than...
It gets so expensive. And then what happens, like all attorneys are governed by the same rules of ethics and stuff.
Right.
Everybody knows we're hired guns, right? We have to do what our clients tell us.
Right.
Well, imagine if you have a crazy person telling their lawyer what they want.
Okay.
So not that our parents get crazy, but somebody with dementia gets confused easily.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And we've had multiple cases where the court-appointed attorney has to do what their client is asking.
Right.
And one of the things that has happened is the dad, in one example, what he heard was happening was my daughter was going to lock me up in a memory care facility. My daughter was going to take over all my finances. My daughter was going to take control away from me of everything.
Yeah.
And so he told his attorney, I want to object. I want to contest this. I want to fight this.
Okay.
And this was a father-daughter who've been close their whole life. She's been taking care of him for years. Just got to the point where one of the home that she needed to move him into said, I'm sorry, his documents are too old. You don't have the mental health powers that are needed in Arizona. So they required her to get guardianship. Then it turned into 9 months of litigation between daughter and dad. Cost that family over $60,000 in fees, and it was a nightmare. Yeah. And, eventually the court agreed with her and gave her the power to police.
And in that process, they also have an investigator separate from the attorneys to do kind of a...
like a social worker type investigation.
I was told years ago by one court that they don't want to, or actually I had to call... Department of Adult Protective Services with someone who didn't have a spouse anymore, and the neighbors were starting to get involved, and it was a little scary situation because one of them had the power to sign off on all of her bank accounts.
Oh boy, yeah.
And so we had to call Adult Protective Services, and what they told me at the time was, we're basically, to go through this guardianship, we're taking someone's rights away. So we're not just going to take them willy-nilly away. They have to go through like an investigation to find out, is that person really capable of doing...
Yeah, what are their limitations? Yeah. So the Arizona law requires the guardianship to use the least restrictive means. Okay. So if somebody, dementia and all these illnesses, they're a scale, it's a spectrum.
Right. Because other things can cause dementia, strokes, and heart attacks. And there's many different...
Lots of things. Yeah. So yes, if somebody has the ability to still make some decisions, they're going to allow them to do that. Okay. It'll depend. So there's a medical report and an investigator's report that'll come back with those recommendations.
Okay.
And all of that gets taken into consideration by the judge.
Right.
The judge makes the final ruling. And then that's the day when you now have authority to act. Either take care of them, at their medical and their living arrangements, or take care of their finances.
Right.
The second big piece of guardianships that's why they are worse than the other probates is because once you get appointed, once you get the court authority, that's now your anniversary date with the court. And every year after that, you have to file a report showing you're in compliance of taking care of this person.
So the person who becomes the guardian for that person in their family or whatever, it's a very serious position that they're in.
Yeah.
So, and I don't think people realize that it's not just signing off on doctor's appointments and signing off on the listing agreement to sell the house. It's a lot more entailed than that.
It is. You become a fiduciary with all the legal obligations of doing everything that's in their best interest, while ignoring your own best interest.
Right.
And you have liability to do the job correctly.
Gotcha.
So it's more than just being a son or daughter or a husband or wife. You're now liable to the court to do the job correctly. And one of those things that helps keep that accountable is the annual report. And the annual report is not a simple process. You have to prove every penny in, every penny out, how it was spent. You literally have to reconcile their entire financial world all year long. It's a gigantic process that can cost thousands of dollars every single year.
Wow.
And you have to keep better track of their finances than most people do for themselves.
Yes, exactly, exactly. So you need to be very organized and make sure every penny is accounted for,
because it literally has to reconcile to the bank statements.
Yeah. Wow. I knew that, but I didn't realize it was that. But that does make sense because you are now taking care of that person's expenses. So
the court has literally said, we're taking away their civil rights.
Right.
They're no longer a free person.
Right.
We're the land of the free, right?
Right.
So when our government takes that right away, it has to impose some big obligations to be accountable for this.
Right.
Our probate system in Arizona has gotten a pretty bad rap about this. A few years ago, huge investigation that just showed all kinds of abuses.
Right.
Some new rules in place. us lawyers who are in this industry aren't sure that the rules are much better now. We still see lots and lots and lots of abuse.
Yeah.
It's just
I actually see it, and I'm not an attorney, so I can't even imagine what you see.
It's just a system that is you want to avoid.
Yeah, definitely. So that then brings us into estate planning. That is the best ideal situation.
Yeah.
And I don't think people realize that having a trust in place or having a good estate planning attorney to put that in place can eliminate all of these issues that we just talked about. So tell us what goes into estate planning and what are things we should look for and that kind of thing.
So estate planning in and of itself is a word that kind of is reserved for the rich, right?
Okay.
Or at least that's the
impression.
The common impression.
Yep.
And there are definite estate planning strategies that are only relevant for the wealthy. Okay. What I'm going to mostly focus on is estate planning kind of for the rest of us.
And I think we definitely need to, because a lot of people, when I do talks for my clients, or when we sell a house and we close, I always remind them right then and there, now make sure I give them the attorney name and I say, make sure you talk to Francisco so you get your trust in place, because now that you've bought this $300,000 or $400,000 house, you don't want it to go through probate. And I even tell that to like my first time home buyers that are young.
Absolutely.
And they think, I don't need that. But they don't realize that even the young can pass away.
Just heard a story of these things happen every day. A young gal in her 20s just dropped over dead.
Yeah.
I mean, these things happen. And it's the worst case scenario. Nobody wants this. So estate planning kind of for the rest of us, these are the things that are necessary at any stage of life. So on our website, we kind of break it down into 5 different stages. Okay. There's the new adults who are literally just turning 18 and going off to college kind of a thing.
And that is huge.
So, if you're in Chandler, come to one of our workshops. We do it at all the Chandler High School for the seniors going off. We give them free legal documents, help them get them done, blah, blah, blah.
So since I have all my kids are over 18 and we've done all that. I want the listeners to understand that when you've got kids that are turning 18, if you don't have these documents in place and something happens to them and they're in an accident and there's a coma or, you as a parent, even though you are the parent, you cannot make those decisions without these documents.
You're 100% cut off. Federal HIPAA law requires their records to be confidential.
Yep.
And if they don't give you prior written legal permission, you have no access to know what hospital they're in, to know what happened.
Wow.
Nothing. And
I didn't realize it was that bad. I knew it was difficult.
There's a mom here in Chandler, sent her daughter off to college back in the Midwest.
Okay.
Didn't find out her daughter was in the emergency room until 3 days later.
Oh my gosh.
Literally, and the only way she found out was because the doctor decided, I'm going to break HIPAA law and let this mom know because, my gosh, somebody needs to know.
Yeah.
Thank God that the doctor did so.
Yep.
So they turn 18, they've got to sign the medical releases and nominating the parents. That's the first stage of life. The next stage of life is when you get married. Okay. Things change. You got to get some legal documents in place there.
Yep.
I'm going to skip through a couple of these because we won't have time for all of them.
Okay.
The next stage is when you're an empty nester, right? Sending kids off to college.
Yeah.
Stuff changes.
That's true.
Got to update at that point. And at that point, if we're not already, we're definitely looking at a living trust with all the other things that I'll go through here. But then retirement, okay? Right. Retirement is the big trigger for most people to finally buckle down and say, I'm going to take this seriously and get a real plan done.
Right.
Fine, great. Good time to do it. About 60, 65 years old. It's a good thing to do a couple years before retirement.
Okay.
Because if you do it at retirement, sometimes you've already made some decisions that are irrevocable.
That's actually a good idea,
So start looking at this a couple years before because some of the decisions you have to make, you might have made some bad decisions.
So when you say some decisions, are you talking decisions on Social Security and Medicare.
Social Security, Medicare.
Okay.
So your retirement plan.
Oh, yeah.
Your medical
401ks,
benefits, your 401k plans. Some of the other benefits that you get at work. We have a lot of clients that have stock option plans at work.
Right.
They have deferred compensation plans at work. All these
I didn't
things.
even think about those.
They have big choices that you got to take into consideration before you retire a lot of times.
Yeah, that's true.
So before retirement is the real big phase. We help a lot of clients get this done. At that point,
when you say that, you're basically putting a game plan together for them. Besides all the documents that they need.
Oh yeah. This is like, okay, best case scenario and worst case scenario.
Okay.
Best case scenario is we're going to retire and have the life of our dreams.
Right.
Travel, go on adventures, take care of our grandkids. Do all the fun stuff we've been finally waiting to do.
For. Yes, exactly.
Not run out of money the rest of our life.
Exactly.
And then worst case scenario, if everything falls apart and we both have strokes and die while we're whatever.
Right.
The
or
worst
cancer,
case scenario,
whatever.
Or cancer, something terrible happens. At least you've left this amazing legacy for your family. And they're going to remember you for what you wanted them to remember you for. So we're looking at both of those.
Okay.
The retirement plan is done with what we call a retirement map.
Okay.
Just maps out your retirement, puts all the pieces together, gives you all the tax strategies and everything.
Okay.
And then the estate plan helps to put together all the legacy stuff.
Oh, okay.
So as part of that, so I'm going to focus on the estate plan. We're usually doing a living trust.
Okay.
What's cool in Arizona is they're really simple to set up.
Okay.
And they're also very easy to keep up to date. Okay. That's necessary. With that, you're going to do a durable power of attorney, healthcare power of attorney, mental health care power of attorney, HIPAA authorizations, living wills, all those legal documents. There's usually about 18 documents that go into that.
Okay. And that's where I think people don't realize that they need all of those different documents for any kind of medical situation or we're one of the first few states that has the mental and that's if someone does have Alzheimer's or dementia of some kind, that kind of
it's those kinds of decisions.
Okay.
It's the type of decisions where you're going to need to seek treatment from a psychologist, a psychiatrist, neuropsychologist, something where they may need to be admitted for the cognitive disease.
Okay.
That's the mental health powers.
Okay.
So all of those different documents are usually part of a trust package. Right. Okay. So we package it. Most firms will package it in kind of everything all in one. Right. Ours has 18 documents in the basic set. Right. One of the things that I cannot overemphasize, we could do, I could teach, days of courses on this, is that the trust is taking the place of your will. Okay. But it is not ever going to work. It's never going to avoid all these probate nightmares we just talked about unless you get all your bank accounts, your real estate, your assets, your beneficiaries funded and retitled and registered with your trust name. Okay. That whole thing is it's got to be done. So we have so many probate cases where there was a trust,
but a lot of it wasn't put in that trust.
It wasn't put in the trust.
So I deal with that a lot with our winter visitors. So they will have their trust in another state, and then they come here and buy a second home, and they're usually only here for a couple months, and then all of a sudden they're now living here full time, and they never put the house here in the trust. So now we're dealing with probate courts here to see,
to get it back to the kids or whatever. No, even
you probably
if
deal with a lot of that
all
too.
The time. even if you've got a trust from another state and you're only a temporary resident here, put this one in your trust. There's no problem. Put your Arizona properties in the name of your trust. If you open a local bank account here, put that in your trust. That keeps it out of probate.
Is that something good for, would a winter visitor need to come see you to kind of make sure all the Arizona items are taken care of as well?
Absolutely, because they may need to deal with the mental health power of attorney here. Because if there's an emergency while they're here, right, you got to have the local stuff. So definitely. Okay. One of the things so those are all the pieces of the estate plan, and getting your stuff registered into that trust is the critical icing on the cake. Right. That's like putting the gasoline in the car. Okay. Right. Buying a car is nice if it's just a showpiece. You don't need gas. If you're going to drive this thing and live life, you better put some gas in it.
Right. Exactly.
You got to do that. So if you're not getting that done, in the process of getting your trust done, you're buying an empty car.
Right.
You're buying a car with no tires, right? They're just not telling you it doesn't have tires.
Right.
What we see a lot of times is folks will, they'll promise and they'll commit and they'll say, I'll do it. I promise I'll do it. I promise I'll do it. Well, one of the things we always do is we check up on our clients. And some of you clients out there, I know you're listening, you still haven't done it. And so we're coming after you. No, but we check up and we make sure it's done. But in all reality, you've got to be held accountable to getting that done.
And it's good that you do follow up, because I do see a lot of that where there was a trust put in place, but they are missing, like the house isn't in it, or the bank accounts aren't in it.
Or the investments.
I had a lady who had to go through probate. Actually, you guys helped her. She had everything taken care of except the bank account, and her dad had $1,200. And she's like, do you have to go through probate? I go, unfortunately you do.
It sucks. Luckily for dollar values, there's a little there's simpler procedures, but it's still, it's like, are you kidding?
It's still, I know, exactly. She's like, it's not even worth my
time,
And I'm like, you have to do it, because you can't just leave it in the bank account.
It's going to go to the state of Arizona. Don't just ignore it. So those are the basic pieces.
Okay.
I just want everybody to know, too, is that there's a whole nother level. I shouldn't say level. There's a whole nother thing to be aware about with all of this. Is something that happens all too often is you'll go get this done. You'll even get it funded and everything registered into your accounts. And then years go by, right?
Yep.
It was really important to get this done at the time, and you did a great job, and you got it done. And then life happens.
Right.
A year goes by, 3 years go by, 5 years go by, 10 years go by. When that happens, your family's going to end up with a mess.
Yeah.
And the biggest problem in my industry is that the professionals who do these plans aren't required to follow up with you. They're not required to help you keep your stuff up to date. And in fact, they will have you sign something that says we're not responsible for that. And I think that's why our probate system is so bad.
Right.
Is because we're not held to that standard.
Right. And they're not they're not following up with their attorneys on a regular basis.
Right. Nobody wants to. We would avoid the attorney, right? I mean, you don't go to the dentist unless they schedule your appointment next year in advance, right?
That's right.
And attorneys, we just don't do that.
Right.
And so the family ends up going to probate, and then the attorneys get all the probate fees.
Right.
It's a big nightmare.
Yep.
So we do the complete opposite.
Yep.
We give our clients what we call a 10x no probate guarantee. We are now required to follow up with you and make sure your plan works.
And that's the one thing I like about
that.
you, because there's not a lot of attorneys that do have that type of program. So real quickly, tell us what that program entails.
That basically means if your family ends up in probate, we pay the first probate fees.
Wow. Okay. So with that, because you have that guarantee, you require your clients to come back every so
we check up
months.
on you every year or throughout the year, right? I mean, we check up on you at least once a year. We're going to have a conversation to say, what's up?
Because things change. Babies are born, grandkids.
People move. You fire your financial advisor. Your children move careers. They get married. They get divorced. Somebody has a medical issue. Or nothing changes in your life. But, right now we're tracking 2 humongous legal changes that are pending.
Okay.
One at the state level, one at the federal level.
Okay.
And if the law changes, you better get that wrapped up into your documents, right? So, and if there's a legal change, then we get that into our clients' plans as well.
And that's what I like about you and your law firm. You have the way you have planned out your process there at the law firm. It guarantees that not only are they going to have the correct documents, but they are going to be checked on a regular basis. And people I don't think they realize how really important that is until they pass away, and then the family's kind of like scratching their head like, well, why do we have to go through probate? Because mom and dad, here's another misunderstanding too that you probably hear a lot of. So I hear a lot of people go through probate because somebody in the family got sick. They went to the hospital, and the hospital makes them sign a medical power of attorney, and they think in their head, oh, I've got the power of attorney and I'm okay. I took care of it. But then they pass away, and they don't realize that the trust, when power of attorney is only good for when someone's alive, and then the trust takes over when someone passes away. Correct?
Yep.
So then this happens to me all the time. I get the call saying, I've got to sell mom's house or I've got to sell dad's house. And then I find out that they don't, because the first thing I have to do is find out if they have a trust as well, because they legally can't sign a listing agreement with me unless they're the ones that the court
they have authority,
has. The court has said, yes, you are the one in charge of taking care of these things. And I think a lot of real estate agents don't realize that, and they just sign these documents and throw things on the market, and they could get in trouble later on for that situation. But that's what I find a lot of when I'm talking to folks when they're trying to sell their home is that they say, oh yeah, I have a trust, and I look up on the tax records and I don't see the houses in a trust. So when I go and actually meet with them face to face and I kind of dive in a little deeper, I find out that they really didn't have a trust, but they had a power of attorney. And that's probably my biggest, as a real estate agent, I see that more than anything. Yeah.
So they have a power of attorney, then mom or dad dies, and they kind of think the power of attorney keeps going.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it completely ends immediately when somebody dies.
And the trust takes over.
Yeah. The power of attorney has no authority after death. Zero. Nothing. Nada.
Okay.
And if there was a trust, great, If it's owned by the trust, then you can, sell the house. If it wasn't owned by the trust, then you're headed to probate.
Yep.
You can't. So what? And the next layer of that is if somebody signs something at the hospital pointing, you're in the hospital, you sign that document. Those documents that you sign in the hospital are usually only valid in that hospital for that particular stay.
Oh, that's actually good to know, because that I did not know.
Yeah, usually you walk out of the hospital and it's not, you can't take that to another hospital, to your doctor.
Or to another doctor.
No, they're gonna say this was good while you were at that hospital.
Yeah, and the hospitals do that to protect themselves. I mean,
you bet.
It's not they want to make sure that they're going to get paid for that surgery or whatever that stay is.
And they don't want to be making decisions without legal authority. Yep. So they, first thing you go in there, they're going to have you appoint someone, which is good. I'm glad they do that. It protects the family from, them making decisions, from the hospital making decisions for you. You got a family member making decisions.
Right, absolutely.
So, but it's very limited how far those are going to work. Yeah.
So, we need to have you come back because you have so much information.
Happy to.
And especially when some of the things that you are talking about are changing with legislation. We definitely want you to come back and kind of give us an update on that too. Happy to. I know what I like about your office is you do a lot of free workshops for people to just hear what's out there.
Absolutely.
And so tell us, when can someone come? Obviously they can come and call you at the office, but if they want to come to one of your free workshops, what's the best way to sign up for that?
So we got a couple different ways. You can jump right on our website.
Okay.
Our website has the upcoming dates.
And the website is
KeystoneLawFirm.com.
Okay, and we'll put that link on the
notes
site too.
Awesome.
Yep.
So it's just KeystoneLawFirm.com. You go to the events page, and right there you can just register.
Okay.
We've got 2 coming up next week, December 4th, which is a Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. We've got an evening one for folks who are working. And then we have a Saturday one next Saturday, December 7th at 10:30 a.m. We're testing the Saturday version out here. We don't typically do Saturdays, but we've had enough people say, I can't make it because I work or whatever.
Right.
So we're doing a little Saturday thing. And you can either jump on our website or you can call the office.
Okay.
The phone number there is 480-209-6942, and my team would be happy to get you registered. If you call after hours, you'll talk to the after hours service and just let them know you want to sign up for one of those one of those seminar dates.
And what's nice about having your events next week is everybody's going to be meeting with their family for Thanksgiving this week.
Yeah.
So this would be a good time for you to talk to your family and say, we really need to put this together.
Yeah.
And I think it's good to include the family. I know some people don't. But
and some family dynamics are just different to where that wouldn't be appropriate. If you can, we love having family involved, and it just makes for a much better plan overall.
Yeah.
But this weekend, Thanksgiving, right? This is the time. If you're in your 50s or 60s, this is the time to stare your parents in the eyes long and hard and say, is this taken care of?
Right.
And if it's not, literally this is the best time to get it done before the new year for a bunch of reasons, because the family's usually around already talking about this stuff. And the new year comes with all kinds of other resolutions that are usually more important. And so get these done before then.
I agree. And I think this is the perfect time to get it set up and to talk to the family. But I think it's really, really important that 50 and 60-year-old needs to actually take their parents to one of the events that you have, because everybody hears the same thing. And if the parents don't want the kids involved in it, it's okay. Take them to the event, let them hear what you have to say, and then at that point, they can go in a private room with you or one of your attorneys, and you can get all of those documents put together.
And our event, what we do at our workshops is really low-key, casual. You've been to a bunch of them. I basically just go through tons of education about what all this stuff is, how it works, how does a trust work in more detail, how does all these things, just how do they work. We talk about we even talk about what our costs and prices are for different services. As a flat fee firm, we don't hide behind any of that. And so everything's
so they know what they're getting right up front, which is really the best way. And what I try to tell folks is a lot of them will say, well, I can't afford it. And I will tell them this. If you can't afford it now, it's going to be a whole lot worse if you have to go through a guardianship.
Absolutely.
Or a probate.
It's one of these things that, when it's done right, it's a one-time cost. And it's really, you got to look at it as I'm spending this to protect everything. And with the reality that a guardianship, one guardianship case, even if it's not contested, the fees are $20,000 to $30,000. Just one guardianship can be devastating. But if you have one that gets contested, forget it, right?
Or if you have to do a guardianship for both parents, that's double the amount. So
we've had to do those.
I know. So it's
terrible.
It's so important for folks to get everything in order. So I highly recommend going to one of the events or getting into your office if they don't want to, if they just want to get it done.
If you don't want to come to a group setting, that's totally fine. Just call our office and we'll schedule an appointment. You bet. Absolutely. We're happy to do that.
Okay, good. Well, thanks, Francisco, for coming in. We will definitely have you back because it's that important to get updates on occasion, and you can give us all the latest and greatest on what's going on. So
thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, thank you. And thanks for being on the show with us. And we will see you next week with Solving Life's Next Chapter.